Hello, it's Reverend Tony here. It's great to be with you again for collective worship at the beginning of this new school term. As you can see, I'm standing outside the door of my house, and there's something very unusual just above the door of my house. I don't know whether you can see it from where you are, but let's have a look at it. Chalked up on here are some numbers and some letters, 20 and a cross, and then the letter C and another cross, the letter M and another cross, the letter B and another cross, and 21. 20 CMB 21. I wonder what all that's about. Well, I'll tell you in a moment, but we're going to go inside first because it's freezing cold out here, and we'll have our opening responses, and then I'll tell you what all that's about, and I'll teach you some Latin as well. That's the language that the Romans used to use. But let's go inside before I freeze. That's much better. It's nice and warm in my kitchen. So let's have our opening responses. God is love, all the time. All the time, God is love. You will have spotted here my nativity figures that you might have seen at the end of last term if you saw my Christmas collective worship. And this week is the time when we have the last of the events of the Christmas story, the visit of the wise men who came to visit the newborn infant Jesus. And it's also traditionally the time when we put away all our Christmas decorations so that they're ready for the celebration of Christmas at the end of December this year. So, what happened in that story? Some wise men came. We don't know how many they were, but traditionally we think there were probably 3 because they brought 3 gifts with them, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And they set off from the east and they travelled a long way and they came to Jerusalem. And they went to the palace where King Herod lived because they'd heard that a baby had been born who was to be the king of the Jews. So they expected, naturally, that a king would be born in a palace. So they went to this great big palace and they met King Herod and they told him what they had come to do, to look for the new king of the Jews. Well, Herod entertained them and found out all about them, and he was very disturbed because he'd got no plans to be replaced. And he wasn't aware of a baby that had been born to be the king of the Jews. So he talked to his prophets and his advisors and found out from them that the baby would be born in Bethlehem. So he sent the wise men off and told them to carry on their search, and when they found out where the baby boy was, who had been born to be king of the Jews, they should send him word so that he could go and visit him. And secretly, Herod had wanted to do away with this potential rival, the new king of the Jews. Anyway, the wise men set off and they continued following the star that they'd been following all the way along, and it came to rest in Bethlehem. And there they went in to the room where the child was with his parents, and they opened their presents of gold and frankincense and myrrh, and they knelt down and worshipped the child. So, what's that got to do with the figures that you see here? And what's it got to do with the numbers and the letters that you saw chalked above my front door? Well, there's an old tradition of one of the ways in which people celebrate the arrival of the wise men is by chalking on their door the numbers that stand for the year. So the numbers at the beginning and at the end were 20 and 21, because this is the year 2021. The crosses that go between the letters and the numbers remind us of what Jesus was going to do when he grew up, to die on a cross. And the letters C, M and B can stand for two things. Firstly, they stand for the initials of the three wise men. Traditionally, do you know what they are? Caspar, Melchior and Balthazar. Those are the traditional names, not found in the Bible, but given traditionally to the wise men. CMB, Caspar, Melchior and Balthazar. But they also stand for something else. And this is the bit of Latin that I told you I would teach you. Because the letters stand for Christus, Mansionem, Benedicat. Christus. You can guess what that means. That means Christ. Mansionem. That's a posh word for a house. It's the Latin word for mansion, or just used for an ordinary house. And Benedicat. May he bless. We get the word benediction or blessing from that word. So Christus Mansionem Benedicat. May Christ bless this house. Now we've moved into a new phase of lockdown, haven't we, this week? Some of you will be watching this in school, particularly if you're children of the key workers. And most of you will be watching this, if you're watching it at all, at home. So our homes become even more important now than they had been before. Because even if you go to school, when you come back from school, you're not supposed to play out. You're not allowed to play out with friends or anything like that. So it's even more important that God blesses our houses, the people that we live with, that we have God's blessing, God's love, God's peace, God's joy, God's hope with us in our homes, because this lockdown is going to last for several weeks. So we need to be kind to one another, gentle to one another in our homes, and we need to pray that God will bless us all. Now, I mentioned these figures here because when the visit of the wise men come, in what is traditionally called Epiphany, when the wise men come, that's the end of the Christmas season, because the baby Jesus is no longer a baby. He's growing up, and soon we're going to remember the things that he did as a man. And the angels no longer appear in the story in quite the same way. So we'll put the baby Jesus back inside the angel. And the shepherds have been and gone. They came at Christmas, but they went back to look after their sheep. So we'll put the angel and the baby Jesus in with the shepherds. And Mary and Joseph don't figure in the story very much more. So we'll put the shepherds and the angel and the baby Jesus in with Mary and Joseph. And as I say, we've mentioned the wise men, Caspar and Melchior and Balthazar. And we'll put all of those inside there. We'll put the lid on properly. We'll put that back in its box. And you might think that's the end of the Christmas story. We put those away for another year, and we'll get them out a bit later on in December, later this year. But it's not the end of the story, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in just a moment, after we've had our song. And we're going to sing, well, if you're at home you can sing, if you're in school you can't sing it, but you can hum it. We're going to have the song Come and Join the Celebration. I know it's a Christmas song, but this is the end of the Christmas period, and the second verse mentions the wise men. Wise men journey, led to worship by a star, kneel in homage, bringing precious gifts from lands afar. So come and join the celebration. said that putting the Christmas decorations away is not the end of the story, because there's a very famous poem that goes like this. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are back home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, then the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music in the heart. So we finish with a prayer. Loving God, we thank you for Christmas that we have just celebrated, and we ask for your help in the days and weeks ahead, that we may show your love to all the people that we meet, and that we may continue the work of Christmas, caring for people in need and giving everyone a sense of hope and love and joy. Amen. And we join in our closing responses. God is love, all the time. All the time, God is love. Go and show that love to everyone you meet. Amen. Thank you so much for watching and taking part in our collective worship. I hope this next week is going to go well for you, and I will look forward to seeing you again next week.